Now or never, right? See if I can get Domino's delivered.
Forgot my purse.
I can take care of that for you. As long as you have a lot of money in it. I'll just wait for her to exit.
So we're building this park on Lake Havasu. Okay. People think we have a lot of water, but we don't.
Oh, you have a lot of water and, but the only thing you don't have land is becoming scarce, right?
Is that land?
Yeah, because they don't have enough land,
They're gridlocked.
Yeah, I guess she left. Okay, we call the meeting to order. Could you join us for the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, please.
Chairman Azarmi,
Here.
Toby Orr,
Here.
Doug McKee, Paul Selberg,
Here.
Keith Walker,
Here.
Edward Kulik, Timothy Walsh.
Here.
Approval of the September 27th and January 10th meeting. If I can have a motion on that, please. Yes, go ahead.
The January 10th workshop, the minutes for that are not done yet.
Not there? Okay. So if I may correct that, I need a motion for the approval of the September 27th, 2017.
I'll make that motion.
Okay. We have a motion by Board Member Walker and second by the Board Member Toby Orr. Discussion? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Okay, I believe in this order is different than ours, is call to public, and since there is nobody here for the public, we close that one real quick. All right, in terms of the new business, there was a discussion that we had about, I asked Director Walsh about, this content of the items that we are going to go through it. And I asked him if, he looked at it and really worked on it. And it seems like, we're at the point that we need to, table that so we would be able to review it in further discussion. So I know that the commission had also some comments on that one. Director Walsh?
Chairman Azarmi, are you referring to the ordinance or, I'm sorry, we've got two ordinances before you. We've got the ordinance number 2015-04. I believe that ordinance goes through and addresses the items that were discussed during the
Correct.
the workshop last month.
Right.
And
So the
then,
2015-04, it seems like is crossed off and they left in, right? So that's what basically is revised. That's my understanding.
correct, yeah, basically what we did is staff went through the 2015-04, which the Mojave County Ordinance 2015-04 is the ordinance that adopted the 2012 and provided those amendments to it.
Correct. So that's what I'm saying, that, the 2015, there were, some areas that was concerned, and I mentioned to you.
Okay.
And that's what we were asking you if you don't mind, take a look at it. I
Okay.
know you were very busy with the Planning and Zoning
Apologize,
Commission
yeah.
and, Board of Supervisors and all that. So I think that, talking, just briefly, it seems like, that would be the discussion that we would like to have.
Okay.
So I know that, we made the time to come over here. A couple of comments that I have, and again, I bring it up to, the board. Some of the items that we talked about on the previous meeting, which was, just for your information, in terms of the outline that we had here on the old sheet, Director Walsh. There was,
Yes.
several items that we basically talked about.
Yes, yep.
Okay, so some of those items, like information on the construction documents, et cetera, we talked about that, we not need to have a cover page, site plans and things like that. And I know that in the language here, it basically talks about amend the section to exempt plumbing, electric, and mechanical plans for residential. I don't believe that, electrical plan was deleted. I don't remember that. So we have the electrical plan.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, I believe that was,
The
in-
isometric, like gas line and, the things like that was the comment that was the commission made, the board made. But, we always have electrical plan, showing, the, where the, outlets are and all that.
okay.
So I think, I see that in a couple of locations on that. Is that what the board also thinks? So I'm just making a few comments that, when I review this, I'm just going to bring it up. But, again, since we're going to come back to it, we'll do that. The other thing is like on the items that I saw here, we talked about, the fire blocking for boxed eaves and soffit. I know that, one method was supposed to be the stucco, fascia, and eaves, to be acceptable as a mean. And yes, there would be fire blocking in there, so I don't see that in there. And I know that we talked about it. And the other items that I see here,
So, I guess, I'm sorry, I'm trying to keep up. So last week we discussed, last month we discussed the fire blocking. So we went, and I apologize, we don't have the minutes to be able to refer to those and be able to go through each one, but what we're showing is that we weren't going to remove, basically we weren't going to address the fire blocking, we were going to leave it as is. And then,
there would be a fire blocking, is that correct, Mr. Kolick?
Yes, there will be fire blocking. I only addressed the items that were suggested to be changed,
Right,
not the items that were supposed to be left
yeah. So
as the code is written.
So one of the items that was brought up was like the stucco, eaves, and fascia. I don't believe that was, added anywhere, right? That as an acceptable mean?
The stucco, eaves, and fascia, that's straight out of the code, and we're not modifying the code.
So that's okay then?
Yes.
Is that what you have? So as I said, I didn't see that in there. And, see what else I had on my notes. And the concrete strength, I guess that is okay then, we mentioned that, as long as the plans are
Right.
calling 2,500 PSI, but the, applicant wants to use 3,000 PSI, you're not gonna require testing.
No.
All right,
and that's, if I may, that's basically what this 2015-04 was took those recommendations from last week, and then, and if they were to be removed, we're showing those as being struck out or amended out. And then, I believe hope that helps. But yeah, basically the items from the workshop took those, the board's direction on those, and then basically amended that ordinance to either add amendments to amend those portions out or to remove those amendments that were there before.
okay. So, on the 2015, let's see, what do you call that? I keep forgetting about it. Okay, 2015-04, that's the one that we are asking you to review it, right?
Correct, yeah, so basically through that workshop, 2015-04 was the mechanism back when 12 was adopted that amended out a number of items. So basically what we did is we amended it in order to add those additional amendments to
Yeah.
remove.
So the discussion right now on the table is basically we are asking you to further review that.
Perfect, okay.
So if I can have a motion for the Director Walsh to review ordinance number 2015-4 with the lines that was struck on that, and then get back with us. And it can be in the form of an email with approval and all that, if we can have a motion.
Yeah, I'll make that motion.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have
I'll
a second?
second that.
Okay, we have a motion, and we have a second, a motion by the Board Member Silberg, and second by Board Member Walker. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
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 Okay. So, Director Walsh, do we want to go ahead and review the next item, which is the fee? Is that what you want to do?
Chairman Azarmi, if I may, just based, as some of you know, we just had a pretty good discussion in the Planning and Zoning Commission regarding the fees, the planning and zoning fees, and I believe that the building code fees will follow that same avenue.
I just want to make sure that, if you want to have any discussion, you want to bring it back, because I know that the Board of Supervisors are going to provide some better, that's our recommendation. I don't know what they're going to do, but a clear and crisp, direction to the staff about what they expect to see as a goal and objective. So I assume that would be inclusive of the permits and building permits and all that.
And definitely that we would leave that up to the board on if you would like to follow the same route. Basically what the Planning and Zoning Commission did, just I guess for the record, they elected to request from the board some clear direction on where the board's philosophy on how they'd like to charge fees. Now, I would like to just make a differentiation between the planning and zoning fees and the building code advisory fees, or building code fees. Planning and zoning fees aren't, by ordinance, aren't necessarily required to recoup 100% of the cost. Building code fee, or building fees, actually there is county ordinance that does state that they will recoup 100% of the cost. So there is a slight difference there. Now, being a county ordinance, that's something that definitely the board can change as well if they want to recoup less of that. So if the board has any comments on these fees, basically the fees that you're seeing, they're the same fees that you saw back when we reviewed it the first time. Basically the cost recovery hasn't changed, and what we're presenting is again that 100% cost recovery. So what we do have included in the packet are a number of the comments that were received during our public meetings that we held in January. That's in there, along with some discussion regarding automation, and there's a memo in there that from Chris Ballard regarding the automation fees that are through the planning and zoning ordinance, but some discussion on possible different avenues with that. But definitely, if the board would like to discuss it, that we'd be happy to take any comments you have. But yeah, if the board would like to, again, request from the board clear direction on how they'd like you all to proceed and like us all to proceed, we'd be happy to entertain that as well.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Mr. Chairman, I was just wondering if Tim might just kind of briefly go over the philosophy that you use to determine what the building fees would be.
What
was the reasoning behind it?
Perfect, yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Basically, what we did is we worked with, and I know many of you are probably sick of hearing this already, but we worked with Office of Management and Budget and the Finance Department, and we looked at the process, what it took to accept a permit for whichever type of building permit we have, accept that building permit in, review those plans, process that permit, and provide the necessary inspections. And we looked at, from permit application to certificate of occupancy and what that cost was. And basically, working with finance and OMB, we put an hour to that, a number of man hours for that, and then based on those numbers of man hours, and we estimated a cost for each one of those. So the philosophy on preparing these fees was basically 100% cost recovery for those permits.
Yeah, because from my experience, most jurisdictions, they kind of go by the ICC guidelines and charges. How does what you're proposing correlate with that?
It would correlate directly with what the, and Ed will help me on that one if I'm off, but I believe in the past, actually currently they don't provide a percentage for the plan review fee, but in the past, up till the 2006, was it, or?
Up to the 2000 code when UBC converted to the ICC, they're not putting out a percentage for plan review any longer. What they do is they put out a valuation table every 6 months, which gives you a square foot price for each type of construction and each occupancy of construction. And that gives you a square foot dollar amount, and you can figure your fees that way. Based on my experience, if we went that way, our fees would be substantially higher.
Thank you.
So how do they determine that? They give you a square footage for the estimated costs, and then how is it calculated from there?
And then it goes into the valuation table. You take the square footage of the project times the square footage amount from ICC, you calculate that gives you a dollar amount, and then you transform that into your valuation table, and that's what comes up with your permit fee. And then your plan review fee is typically 65% of that amount.
So if you go by the ICC guidelines, is that, if you follow it on the prescribed method like you described, would that you would end up with a permit fee? Is that how?
Correct.
Now, do you look at a graduating scale on that at all, or the ICC just says this is what they recommend?
That is what they recommend. They do give you options to use different point factors depending on the size of your jurisdiction and the amount that you want to recover. Just off the top of my head, right now the county charges, they figure their valuation fee at roughly $91 a square foot for residential. ICC is at about $131 per square foot. So that's why I'm saying it would raise the valuation, and if we use the ICC fees, we'd be higher than what we're
Right,
proposing.
so you'd be like 35-40% higher, rough idea.
Valuation-wise.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay,
I can provide more documentation on that if you would like. I can print out and email that to.
That'd be great.
To the board, what ICC has in their Building Safety Journal magazine. It comes out in February and August, and they adjust the prices, and that's a national average on construction costs. So a lot of jurisdictions do use that because it's done by a third party, so it's not really the jurisdiction deciding what those costs are.
Good, thank you.
okay, question I have on the valuation, I was just glancing at it. Give me an example, the valuation of concrete slabs without any plumbing or electrical, $12.25 per square foot. That seems to be, not realistic. $12.25. It's on page 4, on the bottom of the page 4. If you look at the valuation of concrete slab foundation without any plumbing or electrical, $12.25 per square foot. Am I misreading that, or is it something that
You know, Chairman Azarmi, that's actually what was approved previously. The only changes that are.
No, I'm asking, I just, since we have the opportunity
Yeah.
to take a look at it, I'm saying that, I see that, and then on the next page, on page 5, I see, valuation of a stucco lath installation on existing buildings, $3.70 per square foot, which, they normally calculate by yard. So you're looking at about something like close to like $35 per yard for the stucco. So I'm questioning that, this valuation, it seems like it's extremely inflated. Because even in today's market, the square footage for the flat work concrete is about $4, maybe $4.50 in a good day. And stucco is not, $40 or $38, per yard. So my question is that this valuation, and again, those are just a couple of examples I saw, some of them are within, the acceptable range and, practical to the market value, not the valuation value, market value. But some of these, I was wondering if any thought was, when you guys put it together.
Chairman Azarmi, if I may, basically, and I hate to give you, I guess I'll give you a little history. These valuations, I'm not sure exactly the methodology as far as whether each one was evaluated in order to get to this recommendation. Basically, working with finance, my understanding is basically they looked at, okay, this is what it costs us to process these permits. So I don't know that they looked at each individual valuation. I believe what they did is they said, okay, looking at permit fees, if we adjust the permit fees, notwithstanding what the valuations were, but if using those valuations, we adjust these permit fees, this will get us to what it actually is costing us. So to be honest, I couldn't answer your question. I can do the homework and look into that and see if each item was evaluated on the valuations. But my understanding is that using those valuations that were used and then plugging those into the permit fee table, they adjusted the fees per value in order to get us closer to what it actually costs us. I hope that helps explain that a little bit. But definitely, I can look and see. I don't believe that the actual valuations were evaluated. I think it was more looking at what we're charging per house and being able to adjust the fees per those evaluations, in order to get us closer to what that cost is.
Okay, so my question is that, if someone wants to come in and do some concrete work and all that, I assume that your staff, they're going to take that $12.25 per square foot and apply it for the valuation. Is that correct?
Correct, yeah.
That's correct.
So they'll use that valuation, they'll go through that table, pull that valuation, and then once they
It's
have that.
not realistic, I'm
Okay.
saying.
Yeah.
What I'm saying is that, some of these information that we have here, I don't know if that now's the time to go back and look at it or just, sweep it under the rug and say, well, we accept it, the way it is. And I understand what you're saying. You're saying that there was a cost budget or whatever, and then it was distributed over all the different elements of the construction, and maybe that ended up with the $12.25.
And actually, I'm assuming that those valuations were done back when the original fees were done. I'm assuming those may have even been pulled out of the UBC or the IBC or ICC at that time. That's been one that's been in there, and forgive me, I know I'm preaching to the choir here, but basically those valuations weren't touched. Basically, what we looked at is based on what each home was valued at. Then those fees applied to that different valuation, and those fees were adjusted rather than what the valuation of that structure was.
No, your point was well taken,
Okay.
that this was already established, and, now we have the opportunity to revisit.
Sure.
And I'm saying that, I'm just saying that, if someone looks at this, is going to say, wait a minute, if I get a concrete contractor, he's going to do it for me for $4.50 or $5 per square foot. and the stucco guy is gonna do it, let's say for like $9 maybe, and, here it is the valuation that you're charging me, that's why my point is that, now that we have the opportunity, let's take a look at it, and if there is a legitimate reason for it, then, so be it, but it is, in my opinion, it's very deceiving right now, this table, for somebody in public to take a look at it and see that, he pays his contractor a fraction of that cost.
Okay.
I think another thing we got to consider, that includes labor and material, cost of overhead,
Yeah.
the retail price that you would be charging your customer for that project.
Same thing. When Toby would be able to help me with this even more, on the flat work concrete, I don't think you would be able to charge like, $12, $15 on that, so. And same thing with as I said, those are a couple of items I saw, but there are additional items that, are in there that I noticed on the valuation. And then the other question I have, Director Walsh, it says the permit fees for the storage tanks, which is on page 5, on the bottom of page 5. So the permit fee up to 2,500 gallon water tank above ground, and then about 3 items down in ground. In terms of your service that you provide as a governing entity, the permits process, my assumption is the same, isn't it? I mean, what is it that you're doing for $40 more, my question?
Those fees weren't reviewed as part of this analysis, but I mean, just shooting from the hip on this, my guess would be if you're talking an above the ground, you're going to Home Depot, you're going to Ace, and you're buying a plastic tank that you're putting up. On an underground tank, I'm assuming there's going to be a little bit more engineering based on the pressure from the soil pushing in. So there, basically,
No, what is it that you provide? Because your permit fee is for the services that you provide.
correct.
So my question is that, I understand that the guy who is going to buy a 2,500 gallon in-ground has to get more, he's going to pay more, I assume, or however it is going to be, and is involved with excavation, et cetera, et cetera. But your permit fee is, you're collecting it to provide service. So what is the difference? What service over and above the first item you're doing to justify the second one? Inspection, card?
Chairman Azami, again, shooting from the hip on that, I would say that and above the ground, we're looking at just placement, we're looking at have they graded it off as a level? Again, this is shooting from the hip. I'm not, I don't know how many of these we actually have done. But for an underground, I think we're now looking at the soil, the application, I would assume, is going to be a little bit different, but I couldn't verify that. But yeah, so do you know offhand how many, have we done many underground? I would hazard a guess as far as just pulling those two, the complexity of one versus the other is going to differ. So in reviewing that application, it would take a little bit more for an underground.
It seems the way I look at it is that, obviously one is more expensive than the other.
Yeah.
So the permit is following that expense, not the service that is rendered, the way I look at it.
And we could look into that.
Yeah, so I'm just saying that, it seems like, and again, it goes up, and it's not that significant. As I said, it's like when you go to the other levels, you see like $55, $65 for the one unit, and then, $110 for the other. But that was a question I had. And then permit fee for removal of in-ground storage tank. Are you inspecting those, or is that what there's a permit, so somebody has a tank in the ground and they have to remove it. Do they have to have a permit from you? Is that what you're saying?
If they're doing that, yeah, they would have to.
Okay, so you have to have a permit to, if they have 2,500 gallon tank in their yard and they want to remove it, let me say it this way, you're optimistic that they would approach you for a permit, right?
Correct.
Okay. And then on page 7, item 5. For use of outside consultants for plan checking and inspections or both, including county administrative and overhead costs, it says actual costs. So in the way I look at it, this is kind of open-ended in a way. So is that the intention that you had?
That would be correct. Yeah, basically, if an outside consultant is needed for, and typically those would be requested by the applicant for speed or for, something along those lines. Basically, that would be a pass-through cost. The county, whatever it costs the county to review that or to provide those inspections would be then shouldered by the applicant.
You and I had a brief discussion about this thing. Why can't you just provide? Because I assume that you are asking outside outsource or outside consultant to review something and a stamp and verify and send it back to you. So why don't you put the ball in their court to provide their own consultant and negotiate their own consultant and provide you with whatever verification you want, so you don't have this open-ended in your ordinance?
And that's something that we are considering. We had that discussion. I brought that up with staff, and that is something that we'd be looking at what we'd be looking at is to have a registrant be able to review that and do that. But that is an option we are looking into right now.
And of course, the only process would be processing fee of whatever you have to do, which would be very minimal, right?
Correct.
So this way, I think that, and the reason I'm saying is that, let's say that you have somebody at the Utah border, and then you're hiring someone from, let's say, Phoenix to come out and do the inspection or whatever. That fee is going to be exaggerated amount, but maybe on the Utah border, he would be able to find someone that he would be able to get it done for a fraction of the cost. That's my
No,
point.
it's a great point. And we're looking into that and the feasibility of that.
Is the board concurrent with that? I appreciate it. Okay, and then on page 9, I have a couple of comments. On page 9, on the generator, for electrical generators and electrical driven rides. Okay, so this is basically, I think, comes from the page number 8. For the carnivals and circuses, I assume that's what it is. Item number 1, carnivals and circuses and all the booth and everything. I think goes to the next page. It says for electrical generators and electrical driven rides, each. So is it each ride? Is this tied together? Or am I making a mistake? On page 8, on the bottom of the page, there is item number 1, and then goes to the top of the page 9. Is that $26 related to item number 1?
Yes, it is.
Okay, so it says here for electrical generators and electrically driven rides each. So are you charging per ride, or is that charging per generator?
I believe it includes both. If they have a generator, and then also if it's not a generator, but it's an electrically driven ride, it's $26 for each generator, $26 for each electrically driven ride.
So if they bring a heavy generator, they only pay $26
Correct.
and tie it into all these different rides?
Each ride.
No, that's not what,
Per generator and per ride. So
Oh, okay.
you'd pay for the generator, and then you'd pay an additional 26 for each amusement ride.
okay. I think that needs to, in my opinion, it needs to be clarified a little bit better. The language needs to do a little bit better, if that is the case. Then the other one on bottom of that item number, in the middle of the item number 2, for a temporary distribution system and temporary lighting and receptacle outlets for construction sites, etc., decorative lights, Christmas tree sales, lots, etc. Okay, so you're referring to if they are using like a spider that they have to pay? Is that what it is? I don't quite understand what that is. It's right here, item 2. Yeah, $65. So are we, for a temporary distribution system, are we referring to like a spider? So if somebody is using a spider to light up, Christmas, et cetera, we're charging them, they have to have a permit?
That appears to be what's written. That would be my interpretation of it.
So may I ask why even stick our nose in there?
It's all about safety.
Oh, okay.
Making sure, it's very critical to make sure those boxes are in good shape and that the generator's got its own ground rods and everything. Carnivals are probably one of the most dangerous places around.
I think this is temporary power service. You are past that carnival.
Well, this is, I think
Item 2.
that's.
It's item 2,
Right, I think.
temporary power service.
But it is, temporary power services are very dangerous.
Okay. So this is for the spider that they're using for the Christmas lighting and,
It could be,
Junction box that has all the
but
cords.
for when he's talking about the generators and stuff, yeah, you do need to make sure they're grounded properly.
right. But it doesn't, where's the language about the generator here?
And I think that is up above,
Item 2?
that'd be item 1, so.
What?
Two, I would say, would be like a spider box
That's what I'm saying. There is,
distribution.
if you meant a generator, item number 2 doesn't bring the language of a generator in.
It talks about temporary service pole and pedestals, and so it's a temporary apparatus that you're plugging
Right,
these
which is
devices
$65.
into.
Right, which you have that $65 for that item. Then the next item, it says for a temporary distribution system and temporary lighting and receptacle outlets for construction sites, decorative lights, Christmas tree sales lots, firework stands, etc. I don't see anything about generator there. Do you see that?
No,
That'd be line 1.
The spider, right?
Yeah.
So this is pretty much targets a spider, right?
Temporary power
temporary power.
pole.
That's on the first one, but that's already $65 there.
Okay.
The second line is,
Lighting receptacles, construction site, decorative lights.
Number 2 would be basically the temporary electric service.
Right.
And distribution service that you'd have, per se, at a Christmas tree lot. They come in seasonally, put a power pole in, a temporary power pole. They run festoon lighting around, they run cords and everything for their operation, and that would be a $65 permit fee. according
that's
to this one.
the first box that you have and shows $65. Then you have a second box. So you're saying that those are tied together?
No, those are two, they broke it apart for some reason, and I have no explanation why it would be the same.
Could we
would
take a
be
look at
different,
it?
But it kind of looks like you could combine the two into one, but
Well, it can be A plus B or A independent or B independent, right?
right.
So if that is the case, I think we need to look into that, if you don't mind.
Can I
Please.
make a comment here?
Please,
Actually, is this thing on?
No.
push that button.
green light.
There you go,
There we
sir.
go. It's been a few years since I've really studied permit fees and valuations, but it's not that many years ago that all this stuff was in the, fairly well-defined in the IBC, and it was all done in like 2 or 3 pages. And I just can't understand why we have to go from like 2 or 3 pages and add all this complexity with 18 pages. I just don't see the reason. That seems like you're splitting hairs over some of this stuff. I mean, tell me if I'm wrong.
No, no.
Why can't this be reduced down to about, let's say we double it, from my memory, when it was 2 pages in the IBC, to 5 pages? I mean, I'm sorry, I don't know why it has to be so complicated.
I agree with you.
You know, and it follows through, and I'll sound more and more like my colleague here, who's not here today, unfortunately.
He's in the hospital, actually.
But it's like the geometric growth of code pages, and I wonder what are we accomplishing by this? We're just making things more complex and more complicated for the average citizen to go out and do something.
To be honest with you, Toby, I do not remember anyone, anywhere, anyhow, applying for a spider permit. I haven't seen that. I've seen a lot of
So,
functions.
on the rare occasion
they
that
use a
somebody
spider.
might want to do this, we have to have a whole other like line in the code just in case somebody might apply for a spider permit. I don't know,
And yeah,
I'm just skeptic of this whole thing. I mean, if I had my way in a perfect world, send the whole thing back and narrow it down to 5 pages and.
that's what we are
All
asking
okay.
Director Walsh to look at it and, kind of, this is the opportunity that we have right now. And it basically continues with the same discussion we had this morning, and now we are in the same thing that, let's take a look at that. And I have also page 10. Okay, on that one, unit fee schedule, item number 10, for each lawn sprinkler system. And there is a permit issuance and all that. So I don't know if, are we now going to apply for?
Well, it's like, again, I'm sorry, excuse me for
No,
interrupting.
no, absolutely, no
I'll
problem.
be totally blunt. What this does, this actually makes more work for the building inspection department to implement all this stuff. If you guys could simplify it, or, let's say we adopted this thing the way it is right now, well, you're gonna need more inspectors just to enforce all this stuff. So it's like a vicious circle. You're gonna need more money, higher budgets, more people. Why can't you simplify it?
Chairman Azarmi,
Yes,
Commissioner Orr, the ordinance that you have before you has been the ordinance for quite some time. I think I understand the direction is basically, let's look at this and see, and by all means, definitely, we will do that. I just want to clarify that we're not proposing any new fees here. These are all existing valuations, existing fees, and all we've proposed with the revision, with this amendment to the ordinance is just changing some of those fees. So we're not adding anything to it.
your point is well taken, and we talked about this. But again, we are not in the same time. We are in a different time. And not pulling a permit is felony and misdemeanor and all that. So, there is a ground for, if somebody doesn't apply for a spider permit or a spider whatever, in some of this language in the book says that, they qualify to have like a felony case and, all those things coming after them. So you are 100% right. Those of us, including this code advisory board, we failed on those long time ago. But again, none of these items were really enforced or, was the possibility of enforcement. We are in a different time. So that's why we are right now asking you, if you don't mind.
Oh, be happy to, yes.
That's the
Yeah.
logic.
No,
That's the
good.
logic.
I just wanted to make sure that it wasn't being interpreted that we were providing any new
No, we are not saying that
regulations
you
here.
have drafted it or under your direction was drafted, but what I'm saying is that, just glancing at some of these that we have the opportunity, there are some opportunities to correct the situation. And I think that was the intention of the meeting this morning, to just make sure that, we are kind of, now that we are investing time, let's correct it.
Okay.
And again, when I looked into it in a little bit more depth this time around, I see that, there are some teeth in there that can cause a lot of discomfort out there.
Okay.
That's my point.
Good.
So, and I'm just pointing out some of the issues, like on page 10, item 10, for example, is one of them. You're looking at, item number 9, item number 8, for alteration or repair of the drainage. Well, if somebody is having, a sewer backup, you cannot wait until Monday to apply for a permit and get things done. It needs to be taken care of right there and then. So, there are some, issues there, that needs to, I'm just saying that, it is separating itself to some extent. I can understand if somebody wants to extend a sewer line from point A to point B, they need to have a drawing, they need to have all those factors needs to be in place. But, this talks about, for alteration or repair of water piping and or water treating equipment even. So what I'm saying is it's very vague, it's very open-ended type of thing in my opinion. And, so I'm just saying now that we have the opportunity, let's take a look at it.
Okay. Chairman Azami, on
Yes.
that note, these items are all listed as requiring permits in the code. So I'm not sure, maybe that was the direction they took when they wrote this ordinance, because the code does require if you do an emergency repair, you can do the repair, but you still need to come and obtain a permit after the fact. So that's why a fee is
And may I ask,
there.
what does it do for the homeowner?
We have documentation, so down the line, if there's a further issue, then we know that something was done on that property, documented that it was repaired. They tell us how they made the repair and what was needed for that repair, so that it's documented for the pedigree of the house.
Your point is well taken. How many lawsuits did you have that the homeowner, fixed something and come back and say, hey, you guys were supposed to come and inspect this, and you didn't do it? I'm just saying that,
I've been involved in 2 of those.
for a house?
In my career. In 2
For a house that,
houses.
let's say that, the plumbing in the kitchen busted and they failed to pull the permit?
Right.
Wow, okay. I think I go back to Toby's comments on this. It basically, it seems like it needs to be addressed, in my opinion,
A lot of these issues could be addressed by just a standard plumbing permit is X amount of dollars, and it would include any of these items. So we could reduce the amount of the tables, but the permit would still be required, and that would meet the intent of the code.
or if the Board of Supervisors chooses, they can stay completely out of it.
Correct.
Right, okay. Page 12 is just a sense of humor comment that I'm glad that Fort Mojave is not included as part of this ordinance. On item Bullhead City, Mojave Valley, Golden Shores. So I'm glad that these, laws are not applicable to Fort Mojave.
You don't have to get a permit.
That's right. Just as a comment.
If I may, on item 12, what happened is we were going through
Page
this.
12?
Or page 12, I'm sorry, yeah. As we were preparing this, it was found that this ordinance had actually been adopted separately, and then it hadn't been added to it. So while we were going through and revising this, we went ahead and said, hey, we had this out
Right.
here, we forgot to put it in last time, but it was actually adopted by the board already, it was just a matter of bringing
I
it in.
understand,
Yeah.
but I'm just saying that, I, to be honest with you, when I studied it, I don't understand why, fees are different from one jurisdiction to another. Inspection fees, I understand inspection fees because of the distance, maybe.
It was on this specific one, if I'm remembering right, the solar construction fees that we charge, state statute indicated that we had to recover 100% of the cost. So in coming up with this table, they looked at the travel costs as well. So and again, it's been a little bit of time and I wasn't involved on it, but that was the way it was explained to me is when the board adopted this ordinance, it was per state statute, had to equal the cost for the inspection. So that's why they
So,
broke it down to the different areas.
If I may kind of be a little bit sarcastic,
You bet.
on Fee Region 1,
Yeah.
Beaver Dam is $41.32. The Bullhead City, which you have an office there and all that, is $93.64. So I don't know if this is anything that, even we have to waste any time on
No,
it or anything
it-
like that. So just want to,
Yeah,
it seems
no,
like
it's a valid point.
it's non-jurisdiction.
Mojave Valley will be triple.
There you go.
There you go.
Well, I'm glad Fort Mojave is not there, so I'm safe.
Fort Mojave.
I believe when they created that geographic descriptors, they took it from the offices, and we do have an office in Beaver Dam. So that's probably just speculating how they came up with that cost. I'm not sure.
But you also have an office in Bullhead City, right?
Right.
I'm just, it's a non-issue. I was just trying to. If you're going to redo this one, page 17, there's a typo on review to establish a standardized plan. I think there's a typo there. I don't know if it's important or not.
No, that's a good catch. Review to establish a plan for, yeah.
Now, the part that I see on this kind of ordinance or whatever.
Or no, okay.
It seems like you have a plan check fee, a processing fee, and a permit fee. Is that correct? Am I missing something, or?
Say that again, I'm sorry.
Well, I see these tables here that talks about processing fee.
Page you on?
See, like, for example, on, and that's another question I have here. It says deposits for processing permit applications. And then it says, okay, if it's a deposit,
That's what-
it should be refundable, I assume. But immediately it says non-refundable. So what is it? Is it refundable, non-refundable, deposit,
The
non-deposit?
deposit is for the plan review portion, and it's non-refundable if the plan review has started.
Okay, so that needs to be maybe explained a little bit better. So basically, when they apply for something, you already started it, right? I mean, you accepted it, you process it, you do that. So I don't understand the portion about the non-refundable then. So you're saying that, let's say somebody walks in and turns it in, and the next morning he's gonna come back and say, I wanna retrieve my permit. You're gonna basically look at what service was rendered. Is that correct?
The ordinance says that the building official is authorized to refund only 80% of
Right.
the fee collected if the work has not started.
Right. But I mean, when you receive the plans, immediately they stamp it, they start working on it, registered
Right.
it, entered it to computer, et cetera, to just the work is already started.
You're correct.
So what that means is that, in the theory or in practice that you're mentioning, it's already started, so it would be non-refundable.
They're entitled to up to 80% of their deposit.
Right, and it says in the language here that the building official has the authority to make that decision in terms of yes, no, maybe, or whatever.
Correct.
Correct, okay. I just want to say this language, Director Walsh, you need to take a look at that on page 17 on the bottom. So if it is a commercial fee, it needs to be there, because when somebody turns it in, it's already started.
Okay. Yeah,
The
we'll
way
take a
I
look
see
at
it,
that
I
and
mean,
see.
you know.
Yeah, we'll get some more details on
Unless you
that.
have a different vision on this, that, no,
If we haven't started reviewing it, then yeah, we would look at that 80%.
right, so that's what I'm saying.
Done the 20% would cover the administrative.
Exactly, yeah, and I think that's what we're saying is if we've accepted it, that 20% would cover our staff time for accepting it, processing it, putting it in there. But if we haven't started reviewing on it, then definitely we would return that 80%.
So the language that it seems like, they're using on the
Can
fees
change
here,
that.
it seems like they call it a processing fee. So you have a plan check fee, you have a processing fee, and you have a permit fee. Is that correct? Or is that the processing fee
That's
into
incorrect.
the plan check?
That's incorrect. We have a plan review fee and we have a permit fee. We don't have a
So you have
process-
two items,
two items.
plan check fee
And
and the
permit.
permit fee.
Correct.
Okay, so when I was reviewing this, I saw that the language of the processing fees also sometimes comes into the picture, but it's okay. Then as long as you are reviewing that will be fine. These are some of the, review, as I said, that I had, on this thing, and I'm sure that, Director Walsh, you would be able to,
Got 'em.
take a
bet.
look at it. Any other board members? Do you have any other comments or anything? Okay. So, basically, we are gonna do the same thing that we did with the Planning and Zoning Commission. We are going to basically refer that back to the director
Okay.
to review and come back with the, a more clear, crisp, set of documents after they go over the Board of Supervisors situation, right?
So I believe the recommendation would be to request direction from the Board of Supervisors on a methodology for establishing the fees.
I don't believe that, the Board of Supervisors were, Planning and Zoning Commission, I know that the board was really on that, but I think, in my opinion, that it is you
Okay,
that you need, you are going to be in contact with the board on other stuff, so you're going to come in, put it together, and see what would be applicable and all that, and you come back to the next meeting that we have.
you bet.
So we'll do that. That's my motion. I mean, I'll call it a motion.
Second.
Second, okay?
Third.
A motion by Board Member Azarmi.
Why don't you?
Discussion.
Just repeat it so that I.
Okay. The direction that the board had was, for the Director Walsh to review after, the review with the Board of Supervisors on the Planning and Zoning Commission and all the other applicable to the board, to the Code Advisory Board, to put together a clean, crisp, set of documents that would be presented to us for review. Okay, that was the motion. So it was a motion by Board Member Azarmi and seconded by Board Member Silberg. Discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Okay, I guess discussion on possible action regarding election of officers.
Didn't we just do that?
I don't know, is that,
That's a January meeting. We had the,
sorry, you think okay or not?
what's that?
So this item is, what,
Yeah, basically, in the bylaws, it shows January as being the month for election of officers. We missed it last month because of the workshop, so we just placed it on there just as per the bylaws, for the Building Code Advisory Board is all, so.
Well, I make a motion that we nominate Mehdi Armani for the chairman of this commission. Is that what you're looking for?
is that a punishment?
Motion?
Second?
Thank
I just
you.
want to make sure that nobody
Thank
nominates me.
We have a,
You got a second?
you have a second, I know. We have a motion by Board Member Orr and a second by Board Member Selberg. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Thank you, guys. I don't know if it's a punishment or it's a
I'll
incentive.
make a motion to
Raise my
nominate.
salary?
No, nominate Toby Orr for vice chair.
Vice Chair.
I'll second that.
Good.
Okay, we have a motion for Vice Chair Orr, first by Board Member Silberg, seconded by Board Member Walker. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Okay, so on the setting of the next quarterly meeting date, my suggestion, Director Walsh, is to wait for you, because you know that you have to go back through a whole bunch of turbulence with, the board and all that, and I believe that would be announced by you when you're ready.
Okay,
Would be agreeable to all? Because we
Yes.
don't know at this time.
Yeah.
So we don't need to make a motion on that one, right?
sounds good.
This time. Any comments or announcements? Keith?
Nope.
Paul?
Done.
Any comments?
None.
Toby, sorry that we had to, take you away from, your lazy boy.
Show up.
Well, thank you very much for your time, and thank you. Any comments from you? I mean,
Thank you very much.
Thank you, I appreciate that. Okay, could we have a motion to adjourn?
I'll make it that motion to adjourn.
Okay, we have a motion by Board Member Selberg, a second by Vice Chair Toby Orr. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Meeting adjourned.